Welcome to the show, Tamás Czinki, the first Hungarian Master Sommelier, and thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for the invitation.
And I really just want to start in the beginning first, after congratulating, because it's really a big achievement, and
Yeah,
I really want to congratulate on this great success what you've achieved so far in this young age. And I really just wanted to start with the basic question, maybe why did you decide on to become a sommelier in the first place? Or what was the road leading to this success?
Yeah, it's actually, I was always working in the restaurants, and when I was a little bit younger, I wanted to have different experiences in different establishments. That's why I worked in like quite big hotels, some small family-run business. Went to work on cruise ship. I spent some time in England when I was 19, and I wanted to specialize in something. I enjoyed the restaurant life, but I thought to be a restaurant manager, to be a Metro D, it's lots of different responsibilities and lots of different things, which is very hard to control by one person. And I always admired sommeliers because they have a very specific knowledge, and they running a wine program, their responsibilities a bit more limited, and they can focus and they can achieve great things. That's why I started to learn about wine when I was in Hungary, when I was 22, 23, and I done some WSET courses. And after certain level, I think you need to, I mean, in Hungary, it was hard to find, in that time, it was hard to find wines which is helping you to gain knowledge or helping you to establish differences between styles. Or just spread your knowledge a little bit wider than other than Hungarian wines. And in that time, with my partner, we decided to go to England and work as a sommelier, because in Hungary in that time that profession was just a handful of people, and handful of restaurants required a full-time sommeliers who's looking after only wine or other beverages. And in England, they were always a very strong sommelier community, and there was a very good strong sommelier market. And I managed to find a sommelier position, and I started, I think, 2013 here.
Yes. And when did you make the resolution to become a master of wine, master sommelier? Sorry.
I think that's interesting, because I wanted to do it when I get into wine, but until you don't have the previous levels, you just don't think about it. And I get into the Court of Master Sommelier exams in 2014, and I achieved the first, second, and the third level. And as soon as I achieved the third level, I thought that, yes, I would like to attend on the MS exams. And yeah, it took me 5 years, but eventually I get there. So it was a big relief a few weeks ago or a few days ago. It was an amazing journey as well. And yeah.
And why did you decide to maybe stay on this path in these 5 years? So what was maybe the motivation, or what was the end goal? It was really the title, or it was something else inside you?
It's nothing really about the title, but I always thought, like, if I start the journey and I don't complete it until the end of the life, I would be like really bothered that I could not do it, or I didn't push it too hard, or something is missing from me to be a master sommelier. And thanks God, I could pass it. So now I can maybe calm down and focus for different things.
What different things, for example?
For example, like Hungarian wines. like in this journey, I sort of lost a bit of track in Hungarian wines, and because you are studying for the Court of Master Sommeliers, you are studying more classical areas. Of course, you study some parts in Hungary, but I don't have a good overall knowledge about, let's say, Balaton. Or I really want to dig a little bit deeper in Hungarian wine regions in the future, and Hungarian wines, grapes, styles, winemakers. And of course, I would like to get involved in education. So in the future now, because I passed the Master Sommelier exam, I mean, there are lots of members in the Master Sommelier community who is member, but they are not as active. And I definitely want to be very active and want to be very valued for the court. So I definitely want to get involved in education with the Court of Master Sommelier or outside of the court as well.
Wow, it's really good to hear, because you also become the first Hungarian Master Sommelier, and I think is there a pressure on you because of that in your heart? That
well, I didn't realize it yet, or I don't think there is pressure. Of course, I think there is plenty of things what I could do in Hungary, which makes the sommelier community or the sommelier profession better. I mean, it's hard to say nowadays, but you know, the future will tell. I definitely want to inspire or educate people if they are willing to learn from me. Yeah, so I think the time will tell.
Yeah. And do you already have some plans how to maybe help fellow Hungarian sommeliers in the future?
I don't have any exact plans, so nothing really set in stones, but yeah, I definitely would get involved in tasting, you know, tasting groups, or mentoring people, or inspire people, or work in the restaurant, or work in the trade. So it's, I think, plenty of opportunity in Hungary. And the question is that, are they willing to have me, or are they willing to have me as a tutor or teacher or mentor? And if they are, you know, I'm available.
Perfect. It's very motivating and relieving to.
Yeah, you know, during my journey, I had so many help, and so many people helped me to push towards my goal, that I always promise that I think that's a good example of what they set for me, and that's what I would like to give back as well.
Could you mention a few maybe in your career who were really just on spot with your education and helped you a lot, maybe as members? Or...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, Adam Pawlowski was a good mentor for me. We worked together for like 1.5, maybe 2 years at Northcote, and he was the first who literally put me on this path and helped me to achieve my goals. I became an advanced sommelier when he was there, so he's definitely helped me and put me in the right direction with what I supposed to study, or what I supposed to taste, or how I supposed to do it. And during the journey, you know, if I start naming all the people who helped me, we're gonna have a long podcast, because you know, through my managing director, through other master sommeliers, every other people who's pushing for this exam, we sort of like studying together, we sort of like became friends and pushing together towards our goal. So that's why when you pass finally this exam, you came out of the room, it's also a bittersweet moment, because almost everybody who is there is your friend, and you know that how good they are, how strong they are pushing. They didn't pass it on that day. I'm pretty sure they will pass it in the future, but that's why it's also like a bittersweet moment, because you want everybody to be happy, but on the day it was your day, it was your time, and yeah.
And how, like, since when did you work at Northcote?
I started there 2000 and so it was 7 years. So 2013 December I started.
Because this is, I think it's a legendary restaurant, right? It's like since 1996. It's a holding.
Yeah, since 1996 we hold a Michelin star. So yeah, it for me, you know, it's always going to be a place where if I return to UK, I will come and I will visit. They sort of like became my family. You know, I came to this country, I was foreign, I was a stranger, and they welcomed me. They put the trust in me. I get the head sommelier position in quite early stage after I worked like 1.5 years in the hotel. So our managing director is, I think he's a fantastic guy in the industry. His name is Craig Bancroft. He's also into wine. He always been very supportive with all the team, with education, with tastings, or with food and wine matching. So we had a really great team, and I think the concept of the restaurant is also something which is try to introduce this fine dining Michelin star experience for everybody, not just in a very wealthy community. You know, it's something like regular people can afford as well, and they can have a little experience of how is Michelin star.
And what is maybe the focus there at Northcote on your wine list? I mean, if you want to introduce maybe the fine dining experience, not only to wealthy people, as you said, then you can also find some lower priced wine in the wine list, or
Absolutely. You know, I think it's a good sommelier who is putting together the wine list to the clientele, and your wine list, it needs to be something which is very easy to work with as well. So, you know, I would say our clientele is more focused for classical wines. So we definitely had a deep selection or wide selection on Bordeaux, Burgundy, Champagne, Rioja. So the most classical wine areas of the world. But on the other hand, I always try to keep my eye on more up and coming areas. That's why we have wines from Turkey, we have wines from Lebanon, Cyprus, Austria, of course, quite a few. We also try to focus on more rarely known grape varietals, more indigenous grape varietals. We tends to be a champion in Portuguese selection. I always thought they are representing very good value for the price, and it's something different because mainly they use indigenous grape varietals. They don't have another Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, Chardonnay, but they produce something which is sort of unique and giving a more more authentical experience for the customers.
And how do you usually sort out these wines? What is maybe your criteria besides the pricing?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to generalize criteria. I think overall the wine quality is, very, very important. So it's hard to say how is the wine is good, but for me, the best wines are just balanced. They can have oak, they can have lees contact, they can have indigenous yeast, but at the end of the day, everything needs to be balanced out. And needs to offer something unique and something different as well. For example, when you are putting together the list and you have like I don't know, 5-6 different Burgundy on the wine list, you need to make sure they are different styles, different vintages, or different flavor profiles what they offer. Of course, it helps as well if it's different villages or different quality levels. So basically, I think in the good wine list, you just try to cover most of the areas, and try to make everybody happy. That's why when you have a customer who's coming into your restaurant and they really geeky about wine, they're really into wine and they happy to try something else, you can recommend the Romanian orange wine for them to try something different. But when a wine expert coming to your restaurant who is a fan of Burgundies, you can offer something what maybe they haven't seen or maybe they haven't tasted. So it's also different price ranges. Like, for example, on my wine list, I always have sort of like a 1 or 2 iconic wines from every country. Of course, when it comes to a more classical area, I have a bit more icon wines. But I always try to keep one very well-known wine from Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Chile, Argentina, California. And just try to cover everybody's interest.
And these wines have to somehow work together also with the kitchen, probably, right? So do you
Sorry?
also? So these wines should also somehow work well together, also on the wine list, but also probably with the kitchen, right? So do you
Yes,
also work closely with the kitchen?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we work very, very closely. We have our executive head chef, who is Lisa Allen, and she's an amazing chef to work with because she's always been a team player. For example, when we are changing the menu, we have a menu tasting. When we go in, they cook like they do the dishes for us, which is currently is a 5-course menu. And we always come up with some wine ideas, and we try to select the best possible options. And when you are considering that you need to sort of like put together a wine flight, which is a journey as well for the food, so you try to choose like different countries, different grape varietals, different areas, different vintages, different styles. You need to match the prices as well. So that's why we have like 600, 700 wines on the wine list, but sometimes you struggle to find the right one. And then it can come some bit more like different style. You know, you can always match a beer, you can match a spirit, you can match a gin and tonic. So it's, I think food and wine matching, it's like a never-ending story in terms of learning as well, because some of the things which should really work on paper, you taste it and it doesn't work at all. And on the other way around, if you taste that particular dish with something which is out of the box and you would never expect that it would work, it does.
Do you have maybe some favorite pairings or maybe some favorite criteria what works very well together?
You mean something which is classically should work?
Classically or maybe surprisingly?
I always been a fan of Amarone, like a little bit more aged Amarone with some Wellington. I like Amarone with cheese. I think which is really good complement, and it's classically works is Muscadet with oysters, Blanc de Blanc with oysters. With those pairings, you cannot really make mistakes, or it's sort of like a safe solution. But I always like to experiment. If I would say one of the most interesting pairing, what I didn't think it would work when, for example, we do this Obsession Food Festival, and which is we invite chefs from all over from the world, and they are cooking one day. They put together a menu, and we do a wine flight, a wine recommendation for it, and one of the most interesting for me was Martin Klein from Hungary 7, and he done a dessert with some quark and some cucumber, and we were trying like quite a few different desserts. We didn't really know where to go, and he just came in and said like, "Oh, why don't you put a gin and tonic?" And I was like, gin and tonic with the dessert, like it's maybe something which is a little bit awkward or customer didn't expect it, and we tasted it with the gin and tonic and it was fantastic. So it's like basically with the food and wine matching, you can learn day by day.
And just to go back maybe to the wines, because sometimes I find that I like wines which are, for example, coming from vineyards which were farmed at least organically and use spontaneous fermentation, and a little bit more honest wine, so to say, or maybe just the terroir expression is more pronounced maybe. Do you also have maybe in your free time or as a personal experience, or what you drink at home, do you also have some kind of feeling which wines do you like better?
I don't really, to be honest. I think it's very hard to generalize. Yes, I do like organic biodynamic wines, but I do like plenty of wines which is not organic and not biodynamic. Personally, in my preferences, they are changing very often. I like a sort of more savory style of wine. I really like let's say Syrah from the Northern. I like Gamay, Cabernet from a little bit, generally speaking, a little bit more lighter, balanced, fresher style of red wine. I also like, I mean, Burgundy always been one of my favorites. I really enjoy Austrian wines. Generally speaking, I like Botrytis in dry wines, and I don't mind a little bit of Brettanomyces in reds. So, but it's not my favorites is not limited for this style. Very often, if I taste, let's say, a Pinot Noir from Australia, and if they are made in the style what I prefer, it can be my favorite. So I'm not really limited for the environment of the wine or how is the wine made. It's basically the final product, which is the proof of the pudding, and it will make my final decision that do I like it or not.
And if you are already talking about tasting, because I think blind tasting is one of the most difficult part of the exams, right? So, so what's your approach to blind tasting in general, and maybe what would maybe your biggest or best advice for students to get better at it?
Yes, as you said, the blind tasting is a very hard part in the exam, and it requires lots of time, lots of tasting, and a good mindset. Of course, it also helps if you can handle the stress, what you're going to get on your exam. I could say the biggest help, which was for me during the blind tasting, that you realize that if you are doing blind wine flights of 6 wine, that's a really good, and it helps you to gain some confidence with the time management, with your conclusion, or how is the exam situation going to be. But I think it's not really for learning. I think if you are doing a blind tastings of 6 different wine, you are more checking the level where you are, or checking the level of what you have to improve. But I think when you are learning, you need to do more comparative tastings. For example, I always found like Chablis, it's a very good style of wine for learning because it's unoaked, it's have malolactic fermentation, it's have mineralities, and it have high acidity, lower alcohol. So it's a very good wine to calibrate your palate. And you can match it with Californian Chardonnay, you can match it with other Burgundy, like generic Côte de Beaune, or you can match it for Sachagne, Pouligny, California. So I think Chardonnay generally a very good grape to do it on comparative tastings, because it will give you different perspective that, for example, how is the malolactic fermentation taste when the wine is unoaked and very racy and sort of unripe, or how is the malo taste when it's happened in barrel, when it's made with a bit more riper grapes, higher sugar, higher alcohol. So this sort of different mindset, which is helped me to achieve and helped me to become a better taster. Of course, you do lots of wine flight of 6 as well. But I think sommeliers have a little bit of struggle with this nowadays because we cannot really travel that much. We cannot really meet with each other. So during, for example, when in England there was a lockdown, I was doing like comparative tastings, and I gained a bit more knowledge and a bit more understanding of different winemaking techniques.
If you could talk about maybe the methodology, if you have a wine blind in front of you, you are more intuitive or more like try to really just take the wine apart, so to say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. For example, I think one of the biggest mistake what I done in the past and lots of other people doing in the past, that they smell the wine and do some conclusion, and they're going down on the route which is going to lead you for that first impression and first conclusion. So I try to focus in the last like 6, 8, or maybe 12 months that I'm tasting the wine which is really into my glass, break it down for winemaking processes, like if there was any lees aging, if there was any malolactic fermentation, if there was any oak, or what kind of oak, or what intensity of the oak is. And then you try to be as accurate with your structure as you can. So really determine what is the alcohol level, how is the acidity, how is the tannin, also the quality of the acidity and the quality of the tannin. I think it's very important. I always find, for example, Pinot Grigio, for me, the acidity, it can be medium plus, but the acidity, it's like come and go, and it's sort of short. It's not lingering through the finish. Albarino, on the other hand, it is the acidity which is medium plus, and it's a bit more firm and a bit more coarse. Same thing with the tannin. It can help you to pin down that is the wine is really coming from Old World or New World, or if they had any stem inclusion, or if they had any oak tannin, or so there are lots of like technical approach in the winemaking, what you can smell out or taste out from the wine, and it can help you to, or it can lead you to go for the conclusion what going to make you a master sommelier.
And do you already know the 6 wines what you had on the exam?
No, actually, no, I don't know.
No.
They don't tell.
But what were your tips? So what do you think they were?
I think, sorry, but I think I cannot discuss that.
Okay.
No, sorry.
And do you have maybe certain regions or certain wine styles that you found particularly hard to identify?
Yes, for example, for me, Pinot Grigio, I will struggle all the time. Muscadet, Pinot Grigio, Muscadet. Other than that, there are some wines which can appear on the exams. Not 100% that they will, but they can appear. And for example, if they appear, I would be, I think, a bit lost. Like if you can get a Soave, you can get a Smaragd, Riesling or Grüner from Austria. You can have Gavi di Gavi, or maybe Verdeho can appear as well from Rueda. So those things, for example, Oregon Pinot Noir, there are some categories in blind tasting which is always very hard to pin down. It would be a struggle for me as well. But as they say, you need 75%, you don't need 100%. So even if they appear, they will put together the exam that if you are on the level and if you are a master sommelier, you will pass.
What's maybe your approach to learn theory? Because that's also not the easiest part of the exam, so you have to cover basically the whole world.
Yeah, that's true. Theory, I always enjoyed doing theory. It takes a lot of time from your life. And when I was doing it, I think it's very important to keep it interesting for yourself. That's why I've done lots of different study techniques. Sometimes you just sit down and read. Sometimes you draw a map and you color it. Sometimes to listen to a podcast. You do a flashcard. You do a questionnaire from a different sommelier friend. You do the things what I done, for example, during your journey, you need to learn lots of facts, which doesn't really have meaning behind it. Let's say second label of Bordeaux. And you need to learn it off by heart. And I recorded it. I recorded my voice. And when I was traveling to work, I always put it on, and I just listening the second label of Bordeaux or the single quintas of different port houses or vintage variations in Tuscany. So I think the main point that you keep it interesting, you don't get tired of it, and you are not reading over and over the same thing.
And do you have maybe like favorite techniques? For example, I like to use always maps, and also just I need something visual to link the information to. Do you have maybe some favorite methods, or maybe a combination of those?
I think I don't really have favorite. I think it's the key to do it, to change frequently. And maybe one day just sit down and reading, that's going to be your favorite. You read about some producers, but you make sure on not all week you are just reading, because at the end of and Friday and Saturday, you're just going to get tired and you're just going to get bored with it. So then you just change to do some flashcards, and you do it in your workplace. You know, very often when I started to do flashcard and some read out some flashcard on papers, I always had it in my pocket in my work. When I went polish some glasses, I take it out, I read it, I answer, put it back in my pocket. So it's basically like, I think the key point to change these techniques frequently. But to be honest, everybody is different, and different techniques works for different people. I always found it like for example, making notes and write out things and highlight things. It didn't really work for me because it take long time and I had no time to study it after. So for example, I started to do that as well, but I just realized that maybe I have to do a different approach, because for me it's just taking too long time to make the notes and less effective on the exam.
And maybe just going back to Hungary, and maybe just some questions for the future. So what, as you are the first Hungarian Master Sommelier, do you think that you could maybe pinpoint two Hungarian regions or Hungarian wines and make them known for the world, so to say?
I think one person is not enough for this. You know, I will definitely, you know, if I see some areas in Hungary which have a high promise, I definitely would like to promote them in the future, because I think we are doing really good wines. Where we are very bad, I think it's wine marketing. So there is, I think, really good materials coming out from Hungary. Of course, it's hard to generalize. There is plenty of average or entry-level style of wine, which is less interesting. But definitely there are some wines which could be interesting for export. I think nowadays what I see in the restaurant, for example, that more and more people looking for more up and coming areas, and they are getting sort of a bit more open-minded. with the prices of Bordeaux, Burgundy, what they are achieving nowadays, like lots of people moving out and try some different style of wine. So that's why I think Hungary, as well as Croatia, Slovenia, Czech Republic, Romania have some opportunities to show what they are doing. So in the future, yes, definitely, I think I would like to work on it, but of course, this is also depending on the winemaker, depending on lots of things.
And do you also plan to go back to Hungary maybe more often?
Yeah, I'm going to go back and live there. Yeah, I'm relocating.
Wow. Okay. And what is the place of relocation, so to say? So are you going to work in a restaurant or?
No, actually, I'm going to based in Budapest. To be honest, I just wanted to relocate because I think at Northcote, where I was in 7 years, I sort of reached and done everything what I could, and looking for some different opportunities. You know, in the first few months, I definitely want to spend some time with winemakers, want to be on the vineyards, get to know a bit more about Hungarian wines, different style of producers, different approach of producers. So it's going to be, I would say, a learning session for me for the first few months. And after that, maybe if I find somebody who I could work with, or who I could promote, or who I could teach, or if I could get into the wine school, or do something with sommeliers. You know, I think, as I said, there are plenty of opportunities in Hungary. If everything would be perfect in the wine world in Hungary and the sommelier world in Hungary, they wouldn't really need me. So I always be very positive that they can use my experience and my knowledge and turn it to their advantage. But there is no plan which is I going to be an export manager or I going to be a wine educator. Basically, in the first few months, I'm just like looking my way.
And because you also mentioned Croatia, and you also have wines from Turkey and also other lesser known regions, do you have maybe some other secret tips for listeners to look for?
I think
like in this area?
Interesting, yeah. For example, on this year when I was in Decanter, we tasted some Croatian and Slovenian orange wines and white wines, or wines generally, and they were definitely outperforming of the expected. So they definitely a good area to keep your eye on. I think lesser known areas in France like Jura, Savoy can be a really interesting choice if you are open-minded and you're willing to taste maybe something which is a bit more quirky. It's made on different way, but it's still very interesting wine. I also say like classical areas, they produce sometimes very good wines. You really need to know your producer, and you really need to know what vintage can be good, especially if you are looking for some bargains. But to do a bargain hunt in Burgundy, it's a fun thing to do, and it's not easy nowadays, but it is possible sometimes. Yeah, and generally, you know, the wines of Hungary, I think if you find a good indigenous grape varietal from certain areas, it can be very surprising.
Yeah, for sure. And also, I think this region like Serbia and Croatia and Romania, they also have very good value wines, I think, and also very characteristic wines, which you can really just show the customers also the reach of wine and also the edges of the wine, so to say. So it's not your typical palate.
Absolutely. I mean, I totally agree. I think all of these wines, they need a little bit of promotion. You know, these are not the wines what you have on the wine list and some customer gonna come and they just select orange wine from Romania. So they need a little bit of promotion from the sommelier. That's why, for example, what I was doing, I always like to match them for food because I think they can be really good food wines. I mean, of course, generally speaking. And for example, when you have the wine flight, which is showing more up and coming areas or something what people don't really see, you offer a more unique experience. You also educate your team through it, educate your guests through it. So it's basically a win-win situation. You can offer it for very good value as well. So that's why I think these areas are more and more interesting for customers.
And maybe just as one of the final questions, what would be your dream job maybe in the future? Or how is your dream life looking?
Dream life? Good question. You know, I think most importantly to keep diversity in the job. You know, I would be very happy to keep a little bit of restaurant life, to be on the restaurant, like maybe just help on the restaurant with a wine night or help them to put together a wine list. So restaurants being always very close to my heart. I would really do a little bit of education, maybe 2-3 classes in a week. I could do a promotion in some certain wines if I have to come in England or if you have to travel with it a little bit. So I think the dream job for me, it would be 20 different jobs in the same time. Yeah, so it's hard to say. To be honest, I always worked in the restaurant. So first of all, I think I have to try these things. And of course, you know, one of my dreams when I get retired to have a little bit of vineyard and make some wines.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Yes, like what all of us probably would do. So yeah.
So what would you plant in Hungary?
Ooh, it depends which area is it.
Okay.
That's a hard question.
Where do you come from in Hungary?
Sorry?
Where do you come from in Hungary? So where
I'm from Nagykanizsa, from the west part, from Zala.
Okay, not far from me. I come from the Lake Balaton, from Marcali.
Okay. Yeah. You know, I'm not that restricted on the location. I think, you know, you can make amazing Rieslings in Badacsony. You can make amazing Kadarka in Eger, Cabernet Franc in Villány, Kék Frankos in Sopron. Yeah, I think I need a little bit more understanding of Hungarian wines if I want to answer for this question. I need to move out of the move to the vineyards and to see what they are doing and how they're doing and why they are doing it good. So yeah, I think it's just a question for the future.
Okay, let it be. Okay, Tamás, just one final question. What would maybe the 2 final bottles of your life? If the world ends tomorrow, what would you order right now?
I mean, it's hard to say because, you know, I always said I'm open-minded. So probably as my last bottle, I would take a risk and I choose something what I never tasted, but I heard a lot about it. For example, Armand Rousseau Clos Saint-Jacques 2002, what I used to have in the restaurant. One of my sommeliers sold it, so I never had the chance to taste it, sadly. What I would definitely would like to taste. One of the wine what I tasted, and it's sort of like in my early years of my sommelier life, it was Akleiten Grüne Veltliner Schmaragd produced by Prager. which was, for me in that time, I didn't know much about wine, but I could tell the wine is amazing. So probably that would be the wine what I retaste. Yeah, so I definitely, I like savory style of wine. So Jan Schaaf, Hermitage, not Jan Schaaf, Jean-Louis Schaaf. Something which would be quite old, let's say 61, would be, I think, one what I could choose. But yes, I said I'm open-minded. And probably Le Pen, I would always wanted to try, but never had a chance. Of course, DRCs, they can be fantastic wines. I could drink champagne all day long, so a nice champagne, I wouldn't send it back for sure. But yeah, it's hard to say which is the favorite. I love all of them.
I think your loved one just got some gift ideas for you.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. So Tamás, thank you very much for your time, and I really want to congratulate you again. It's really a great achievement.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
And thanks for the invitation and the opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah, and hopefully we can raise glasses together in the near future.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. So all the best. Thank you.